Speaking to potential clients that want to join your online health coaching program can be a very scary prospect, particularly if you've never done anything like that before. But it is a necessary step in first building that coach-client relationship. So it's really important that you feel comfortable with it. And in this video, I'm going to be helping you do just that. So in this video, we're going to be covering three things. The first thing that we're going to cover is we're going to be covering the structure of how to actually conduct these initial calls with your potential clients. The second thing we're going to look at is how to actually take notes whenever you're on the calls with these clients so that you're not missing anything and you're covering everything that you need to cover for that person. The third thing we're also going to talk about is then the mindset that you need to have when speaking to potential clients. If you're new here, my name is Matthew, and on this channel, I focus on helping health professionals start and scale their online health coaching businesses so that they can gain back their time, leave their brick and mortar clinics, leave the hospital, leave the gym floor, gain back their time, gain location freedom, and gain financial freedom as well. So if that resonates with you, consider giving this channel a subscribe and like this video for more. So before I started my online health coaching business 5 years ago, I worked full-time as a physiotherapist in a busy private practice in central London. In addition to that, to try and make some extra income, I worked part-time as a personal trainer on the gym floor. And one thing I've realized over the last 5 years is that there's a vast difference between the way in which you got new patients whenever you're working in person with people versus what it takes to acquire new clients when working online. One of the biggest differences is whenever you're working in person with people, you rely so much without realizing on just footfall because you're there, because you're the first person they see on Google, because they know someone else that went to see you for treatment, or if you're a personal trainer, they know someone that went to you for a personal training session. It's very easy to acquire new clients, not to mention word of mouth referrals from doctors and insurance referrals as well. Compared to working online, it's a lot easier to acquire clients in person. Whereas online, unfortunately, with the rise in social media, in that there's a lot of people now claiming to be coaches, yet they're underqualified. It's meant that for a lot of clients, a lot of potential patients, there's a lot of distrust in the marketplace now. So one of the ways in which you have to go about acquiring these clients to establish that trust, one of the fastest ways of doing that is to have an initial consultation call with a potential client so they can see that you're a real person, they can see that you know your stuff, and they can resonate with you and potentially become a client. Without that call, the chance of you being able to sell a program, certainly at a high ticket price point, is going to be very, very little. So it's really important that you learn how to be able to conduct these initial consultation calls and you feel comfortable in doing so. And that's exactly what I'm going to talk you through right now. So the first thing I want to talk about is how to structure these calls. So the last thing you want to do is have a call with a potential client and there's no structure whatsoever. These clients are coming to you because you're the expert in your field. If you're a doctor watching this, if you're a nurse or you're a physio or you're a personal trainer, I'd imagine the first time you see your patient, you're the one that leads that conversation. You ask them about their problem, why they came to see you, what their goals are, what their objectives are, what their aggravating factors are, like what eases their symptoms, for example, what they've tried before, what worked, what didn't. You lead that consultation, and it should be no different whenever you're having an online consultation with a client. But in order for you to feel confident in leading that conversation, you need to follow a certain structure, which is exactly what I'm going to talk you through right now. So there's 5 main elements to a consultation call when you have an initial call with a client. So the first aspect is the introduction bit. So whenever you have a call with someone, whether that be via phone or via Zoom video, which is what I recommend for most people, because again, it's an easier way to establish trust. If they can see you face to face, they can gauge your body language, you're more likely to build that trust a lot faster, which is ultimately the name of the game here. So the first bit of a consultation call is the introduction. So the introduction phase should last no longer than 5 minutes. And the idea behind this is it's a simple way of essentially breaking the ice, but also setting expectations for the call. So if I was to have a call with a potential client, the first thing I want to do is break the ice. So the way I would do that would be I would ask them about their day, how their day was, how their month's been. It's Christmas at the time of recording this video. I'd ask them how their Christmas was. Very, very quickly, just to break the ice, just so you don't come across as a robot. You don't want to be their best friend. That's not what you're there for. At the end of the day, you're the professional. But it does help to have a little bit of rapport, just so they can see that, well, you're a normal person and they can, relate to you in some way, shape or form. But I wouldn't be spending too much time on that. The other aspect to the introduction phase is to then pre-frame what the call is about and what they should expect on the call. So you as the professional, your goal is to lead that call. So in order for that to happen, you need to set the expectation that you're going to be asking them a series of questions so you can better understand their situation, so you can better help them, better guide them, and also set the expectation that if you feel it's appropriate for them to work with you and vice versa, at the end, you will give them the opportunity to potentially join your program. And it just sets the expectation that, at the end of the call, you're going to be pitching, working with you, and you set the expectation that they're probably likely going to have to make a decision, or, you would expect somewhat of a decision at the end of the call. So the second part of a consultation call after the introduction phase is the discovery phase of a call. So the discovery phase is basically where you find out the ins and outs as to why they're speaking to you, what they're struggling with, what they want to achieve, what they've tried, what's worked, what hasn't worked, why they feel like they need a coach, and why is now the right time. And these are all areas that we do need to cover. And in a second on this video, I will share with you how to go about taking notes on that call to make sure you're covering all those key areas. But the goal of the discovery phase is simply to discover everything you need to know about that client so that you can ultimately help them and guide them and essentially prescribe them what your personalized solution or program would be for them at the end. Without that information, you're just shooting blind. But like I said to you earlier, one of the biggest challenges in the marketplace right now is that there's a severe lack of trust in the marketplace. So one of the best ways of building trust is to make that prospect, make that potential client feel understood. And for them to feel understood, you need to ask them smart questions. You need to ask them the right questions so they have the potential, or they have the ability then to speak freely and basically tell you everything that they feel is important. And if you can, understand that, you can hear them out. When you go to then actually pitch them, tell them how you can help, they're going to trust you far more because, they understand that you've actually taken the time to listen to them and what they're struggling with. So the third part of a consultation call is after the introduction phase, after the discovery phase, you now move into the summary bit. And this is the bit in between the discovery and where you would actually go to pitch them and walk them through your solution. The summary bit is really, really important. So after you've had the introduction, after you've had the discovery, by this point, you should have a really good idea as to what the client wants to achieve, what they've struggled with. And you as the expert should, have a fairly clear idea as to, why they haven't been able to achieve their goals up to now. So at this point, this gives you the perfect opportunity to explain to them in layman's terms why they're not where they want to be. And clients respond. One thing I've learned over the last few years is, I'm a very straight shooter, and clients respond really well to that. So the more honest you can be in the summary phase, you can ask for permission. I often ask for permission. I say, look, based on everything you've told me, I definitely do have some thoughts for you. Are you open to some feedback? 9 times out of 10, they're going to say yes. In fact, every time they'll say yes. And that gives you the opportunity to be very direct, very honest with them about where they are, why you as a professional feel like they've struggled, and it gives you the opportunity then to move into the next phase. So you would simply summarize why you think they've struggled and what needs to change from a higher level overview before you walk into the specifics, which is the next bit, which is the pitch. So the fourth phase of the consultation call will now be the pitch section. And this is basically where, based on the discovery phase, based on what you know about them, based on your summary as well, you would expand upon that summary and walk them through your personalized solution as to how you're going to get them there. So whenever you're delivering the pitch as to how your program works, you want to make it very specific to what they've told you so far. So every single thing you say, you want to tie that back to, what they've said to you in the discovery phase. So a good example of this would be, if I was working with a client that had, type 2 diabetes, let's say I was someone that health professional that specialized in helping type 2 diabetics reverse type 2 diabetes, for example. One of the things you could say is, the first part of our program, this could be a special bit about your program, would be first part about our program is we're going to analyze your latest blood work, and then based on that blood work, because we want to make sure we understand your blood glucose levels, your resting blood glucose levels. We also want to understand where your A1C levels are. And then based on that data, we can be very specific then in the advice that we give. That's a way of you tying back tying in what they've said before as part of your solution. And as a client, if you hear someone say that, you will feel understood, you will feel heard, and therefore everything that you say as the coach, as the expert, is going to essentially hit them so much more. They're going to resonate a lot more with that. So in the pitch, you want to make sure that you're essentially covering all the areas that they've said they've struggled with, and you're explaining to them why your solution is the right option for them. So after you've done the pitch, you now move into the offer. The offer simply means you're giving them the opportunity now to work with you and actually come on board the program. This is where you're going to break down the price, the time frame, the expectations, and the onboarding process as well. One thing you need to do though before you move into the offer is you need to basically get a temperature check as to how they're feeling at that moment. So one of the things I like to do is after I've walked them through the pitch, I ask them if there's any other questions, if that all makes sense. If they say yes, that all makes sense, I ask them on a scale of 1 to 10 how they feel about the process overall. I often say, okay, James, we've walked through what you've struggled with. I've walked you through the solution. I feel really confident we can help you, but I want to make sure that we're both on the same page, and it's really important to me that we're both in alignment here. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about the process? If 10 is, Matt, this is exactly what I need, this sounds perfect for me, and I feel really confident in your ability to help me, and this is definitely something I'd like to do. 1 being, it's definitely not something I would want to do. How do you feel? By asking that question, you can get a very quick gauge as to how they're feeling. If they give you a 9, 10 out of 10, you're good. You can move on to the next part, which is breaking down the prices and the time frames, the logistical stuff. If they say anything less than a 9, if they give you a 7 or an 8 or a 6, you simply want to respond and say, okay, that's great that you feel that way. I'm glad that a lot of that resonates. What's really important to me though is alignment. So is there anything specifically, James, that's holding you back from being a 10 out of 10, 100% certain that this is the right thing for you? By asking that question, you give them the opportunity to be open and honest about any concerns they may have. And if they do have any concerns, which they will do if they're not a 10 out of 10, they should hopefully bring it up at that stage, and then you can address that, you can handle those concerns, and then you can go back and ask the same question again. Okay, based on that, James, would you say you're a 10 out of 10 now? Is there anything else that's holding you back from being 100% certain that this is the right thing? If they say, yeah, Matt, I'm a 10 out of 10, that makes sense, you've explained that to me, I feel confident this is the right thing for me. Cool. The next step then is to essentially walk them through the price. Because the last thing you want to do is walk them through the price before making sure that they're actually serious about the program, making sure that you've addressed any concerns they have with the program. Because if you give the price to them and they say, I need to think about it, you don't necessarily know whether it's the price then at that point that they need to consider, or is it the fact that they're maybe concerned about something that you've walked them through about the program itself. So you want to isolate the objection. So if you ask them that temperature check before you go into the price, it means you can identify, okay, actually it's not an issue. If they say they need to think about it, it's not an issue with the actual program itself. They've got the certainty there. If they say they need to think about it at that stage after the price, it's going to be the price, in which case you can have a discussion with them about that and see if you can find a way to make it work. So those are the 5 key aspects you want to make sure that you cover on that initial consultation call with a potential client. So they are the intro, the discovery phase, the summary phase, the pitch phase, and then the offer phase. You want to make sure that you cover all those things. What we're going to do now is actually walk you through how to go about actually taking notes on that call and making sure you're covering all the key elements that you need to cover in order for that client to actually feel comfortable in coming on board to work with you. So this is the setup I have for taking notes on a call with a client, and I've probably taken at least 5,000 consultation calls over the last 5 years, and I've consistently done this and it works really, really well, because it means that I know if all these boxes here are filled in, I know that I've done a very in-depth discovery, and that's what we need in order to establish that trust. So let me walk you through what this all looks like then. So on the left here, we've got 2 titles. We've got quotes and we've got tried. So quotes basically means that if you're on a call with someone and they mention something specifically, you can take a note of it here, and it means that you can maybe refer back to it later on if needs be. Tried is basically if they've tried anything else. Let's say you're a weight loss coach and someone tells you they try keto, you would write down keto here. And then you can take a little note here and say, well, why, you would probably ask them the question, well, why didn't that work? You can take a little note of that and you can refer back to that later whenever you're walking them through the pitch. So anything that they say they tried, I would write it in here. The right side then is where we get a little bit more detailed, and this is essentially the aspects that we want to cover whenever we're actually on a sales, when we're actually walking through the discovery phase of the consultation call. So we need to try and cover most of these things. So pain basically refers to what are they struggling with? Why is it important for them to change? So I'll use the example of weight loss because that's, the offer that I have in my health coaching business. A pain point could be for someone that, they have, raised cholesterol, they're on statins, they want to come off the statins, they're worried about having a, cardiovascular, issue in the future, stroke, heart attack, what have you. That could be a pain point. A layer deeper than that could be, they might say, I've got 3 young kids. I want to make sure that I'm around with them for a long time. That would be a pain point. There's loads of pain points. You're depending on your offer, depending on what you're helping someone solve. You want to make sure that you're kind of diving into that, understanding why this is important to them. So that's why this first section is really important. The second section is doubt. So doubt basically refers to, essentially, whenever you're on a sales call with someone, you want to build the gap. So building the gap basically means you want them to feel far away from their outcome, so that they're more likely to want to invest in your help because they see it as more of a necessity because they can't imagine them doing it themselves. Now, obviously, this has to be actually true. If you feel confident they could do it by themselves, be transparent, be ethical, tell them that. But ultimately, sometimes people need to see how far away they are from their goals for them to actually realize that they need help in order to achieve them. So doubt would be anything they say that would maybe imply as to why maybe they've struggled. Maybe they say they lack motivation. That could be a doubt reason here. Maybe they say they lack the understanding as to how to manage their nutrition, would be another example. Cost is more so kind of off the back of pain. It's like a deeper layer of pain. Cost basically means what's the cost of inaction. So to use that example earlier, if someone has high cholesterol, they're on statins, they're very worried about their future health issues. Maybe they had a parent that unfortunately had died young because of a cardiovascular issue. Cost would be something like that person said, the person I'm speaking to said that they're going to have a stroke, or there's a high likelihood they're going to have a stroke if they don't actually resolve this issue. That would be a cost. Desire basically refers to what's their deepest desire. What do they want from changing their situation? To use that example again, they want to be around for a long time. They don't want to be on cholesterol medication. They don't want to be on statins because they want to live a long, healthy life. They've got 2 or 3 kids. They want to see them grow up. They want to have a long life with their partner. That would be their desire. Another desire could be if you help someone with weight loss, they may want to look good. They may want to be able to take their top off at the beach and feel confident. That would be another example of desire. Support is along the lines of, a spouse. So one of the biggest objections you can get at the end of a call is, particularly after you drop the price, sometimes people can say, I need to speak to my spouse about this. And that's fine. It's understandable for some people, they need that spouse's input. But this is a good way of kind of addressing that here, because sometimes at the end of the call, if you break down the price and someone says, I need to speak with my spouse, often that can be a smokescreen in that they're just wanting to shift the decision to someone else, even though they're the one responsible. They don't want to have to tell you that on the call. They don't want to tell you that they can't afford it or whatever that may be. So they often use spouse as like a smoke screen to basically get off the call. But in here, if you can cover this on the call, you're less likely to get that objection at the end. So a good example would be, after addressing these things, you could ask that person and say, hey James, you've been struggling with this for a while. How does your wife Jessica, how does she feel about you getting help to solve this now? Oh, she's very supportive. She's told me that she knows I'm speaking with you today, Matt. She says if I feel like this is the right thing, I should definitely go for it. Just by him saying that, he's less likely to give you that objection at the end. So it's a really important one to try and hit. Trust is essentially where you establish, how well do they know you up to this point. So you could ask them on the discovery phase, what made you reach out to me, James? How long have you been following me on Instagram? Have you seen many of our client case studies? Did you resonate with any of them? Just get them to sell themselves why you're the right person for them. You would write that in here. Finance is basically where, let's say, for example, again, because we want to make sure the objection at the end isn't, oh, I can't afford this, or it's too much money. The way in which you would do that is, let's say, for example, they tell you that, what have you tried? You ask them that question. They say, oh, well, I've got a home gym. I've got a Peloton bike. You could then ask them that question. Oh, out of interest, James, how much did you pay for the Peloton bike? Oh, I paid £3,000. Okay. And the other gym equipment, just out of interest, I mean, how much have you spent on gym equipment for the last 10 years? Oh, I've probably spent about £10,000. Cool. Whenever you break down the price and you tell them the price of your program, if they say, oh, that seems like a lot of money, well, you can then refer back to the fact that they've said that they've spent, upwards of £10,000 on, equipment, yet they're still not where they want to be. And just kind of explain to them, look, you've spent all this money on this, it hasn't worked for you so far. What you would pay to work with me is a fraction of that, and this would actually get you the results that you want. That's a really good way of actually overcoming a financial objection at the end of a call, if you get that. And then the final thing you want to cover here is the solution too. So solution basically meaning if they say something, particularly in the doubt section here, where they've tried something before, let's say they've tried a diet plan before, and they say it was too hard to maintain because it didn't allow them to have the flexibility with their food. It was too restrictive, too regimented. Cool. You now know that whenever you are going through the pitch, you would write down here, okay, diet plan needs to be flexible, because he's told you that that's what he wants. So when it comes to the solution, you can cater that to what he feels he needs. Okay, so the final thing we need to cover now is the mindset you need to have whenever you're speaking to these prospective clients. So I think whenever I first started online coaching, whenever I first started taking these consultation calls, I felt salesy. I felt a bit slimy. I'd never done any sales before. And for me, as a health professional, if you're a health professional, you can probably relate to this as well. We're not taught how to sell. It probably doesn't come naturally to us. We want to help people. We've ultimately our patients, our clients' best interests at heart. And I think sometimes when I first started, I was new to this. I just felt uncomfortable particularly about asking for money. I just felt a bit manipulative, etc. However, having done this now for 5 years now, having taken 5,000 calls, having generated over $2 million worth at this stage from online coaching, I can say that you as a health professional selling someone to potentially change their life, you should not feel in any way, shape or form weird about selling your services for relatively high price point, because what you deliver and the life transformation you potentially help your clients achieve is absolutely 100% worth it. So remember, if price is a concern for you, you're worried about charging a high enough price point, a lot of health professionals feel they need more qualified, etc. It's a Dunning-Kruger effect. There's a lot of unqualified people out there charging a lot more than what you're charging. Just remember that, and people are happily paying that. Just remember that some people would happily spend $2,000, £2,000 on a 1 week holiday, whereas some people might feel funny about, and you feel funny about charging that to potentially help someone increase their lifespan by another 5-10 years. So just remember that what you're delivering is absolutely worth the money. The other mindset thing you need to have on consultation calls is remember that you're not there to sell everyone. The consultation call is not just about trying to get a client on board your program, trying to get them to pay you money. At the end of the day, their interest should be the heart of the call, really. Their best interest should be the number one priority for you as well. And by having that mindset, it takes the pressure off. If you have a call with someone and they're not the right fit, they don't have that much pain, they don't have that much desire, don't feel bad about that. It's fine. Some people have a lower buying or a higher buying threshold. So you shouldn't feel salesy at all. At the end of the day, you're just trying to help. So don't be scared of diving in deep on the discovery phase of a call, find out whether they need this, why they need this. Don't be afraid to ask the difficult questions, because at the end of the day, you're just trying to help. You're just trying to understand their situation. So there you have it, guys. That's how to go about actually conducting your consultation calls with your clients. So just remember, you need to have a structure in place. You need to know how to take notes, which I've explained on this call, and you also need to have the right mindset for your sales calls as well. And just remember, if you haven't done these before, you're not going to be perfect at the start. Your first few calls, like mine were at the very start 5 years ago, will probably be horrendous. You'll probably come across as a robot. You'll probably just not sound that genuine. But again, it just comes down to putting the reps in. Over time, you'll feel more comfortable. Over time, it'll just be easy for you. It'll be a second language for you actually conducting these calls. It'll be like clockwork. So just put the reps in. It might be tough at the start. It might take a lot of no's before you get your first yes to a potential client, but trust me, it'll be worth it in the end.